What is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Sports Network. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills offensive linemen from the 90s, John Fina and Jerry Ostrowski. You can find them on Twitter at John Fina and at underscore. I do it every time, Jerry. Every time I say underscore first, at Ostrowski underscore Big O. It's been a year. You'd think I'd have it by now.
You would think.
You'd think. But ladies and gentlemen, please do us a favor. Please like. Please subscribe. Please smash that like button, as all the young kids say. Do us a favor. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed to our YouTube platform or our YouTube channel yet. Also, this show comes to you in podcast form. If you ever miss a live version of this show, you can find us on every single podcast platform. Thanks to Believe. Please like and subscribe there as well. Leave us a comment, leave us a review, all that good stuff. But it is so good to have every single one of you joining us. Thanks to those who are joining us live in the comments section right now. See some new names in there already, which is great. Welcome to all of you. You will get the opportunity to chat with Jerry and John and me. And if you have questions for us, you can ask us questions. But Jerry and John, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Loving it. Beautiful weather out here in Arizona. And I mean, despite the quick little setback, I think Brandon Beane's going to pivot. I'm feeling good about our Bills. I like the signings. I mean, I've never been so excited about Bills football in, what is this, March?
It is March. Yes, still. I don't think you've ever been on a show about Bills football in March, I guess 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago or whatever. But Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. We've had some pretty crazy stuff down here in Oklahoma happen over the last couple of days. We experienced some massive wildfires that actually burned down a bunch of homes in Manford and Cleveland and Stillwater, and just some people out there going through some tough stuff. So thinking about them. Actually went down to Stillwater today and watched a little bit of softball, which was fun. But yeah, I mean, I too I'm excited about where we are right now in free agency. The thing I'm probably most excited about, fellas, is the fact that we have done a really good job. I say we, Brandon Beane, Pagula, and the front office has done a very good job of locking up our core players.
Indeed.
I think we've done a really good job of that. Now we can go out, get the cap right, sign players, hopefully no more of them that have to miss the first 6 games, and, get this thing set up right.
And we're going to talk all about that. Before we do, this week coming up, so we're going to start our official, off-season programming schedule, which will always include the Sunday Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show, as long as we're not traveling or together or in a place where we can't do it, or as long as we don't pre-record something that completely gets obliterated the next day. But this Tuesday and next Tuesday, we will have On the Beat. This week on Tuesday, Jenna Cottrell from Wham 13 in Rochester and the Buffalo Plus podcast will be joining us to talk about all the free agency stuff. Next week, Ryan Talbot is going to be joining us to talk about just kind of what's going on with the Buffalo Bills. And then from here on out, same show, same time, just a different date. The Big O Show with Jerry Ostrowski. And last week's show, I got to be on it. It was great. It was a great show. Jerry, what do you have do you know what you've got kind of coming up for us this off season?
I think what I'm going to try to do is continue to kind of build upon what the franchise is doing for agent wise, kind of look at positions as we head towards the draft, maybe after the tail end of free agency is over, where we still have needs, where we still have positions we need to draft for. Going to maybe try to find a couple of special guests to come on with me during the off season as we head towards camp. So,
nice.
Definitely a work in progress, but we'll have some good stuff for all the listeners and viewers.
Very good. So going forward, for all intents and purposes, you can expect at least the Sunday and the Sunday show and the Wednesday Big O show, which the Jerry Ostrowski Big O show is now on Wednesdays officially, even through the season. So he is going to be on Wednesday. So you can expect that at the very least. And then we will be sprinkling in shows depending on what's going on, OTAs, mini camps, draft time. We'll be throwing stuff in there kind of as we go. Going to talk about the news. Going to talk about all the free agent moves that the Bills have done so far to include their own, yada, yada, yada. Real quick, just in case anybody doesn't know, and we were talking a little bit about it off air, Terrell Bernard has changed his number from 43 to 8. And I think I made the comment that there's not a ton of Terrell Bernard jerseys in the stands in Buffalo when I'm at games, which is funny because when I went to Seattle, there was Terrell Dotson jerseys, which I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. And then they cut him, like they released him like 2 weeks after that Bills game.
That's why the only jersey that I own is the Big O jersey, buddy. That's gonna live forever.
It's gonna go, yeah, it's gonna go down in the annals of time. But any thoughts on why he might change his number? I've always kind of wondered this. I don't know if it's just I don't know what number he wore in college. I could probably look it up while you guys are kind of discussing this. But yeah, any thoughts? 8. What do you think of that 8 on the Mike linebacker?
Well, I love the number. I mean, you know, I love number 7 best, of course, but I would imagine this probably harkens back to something about youth football or youth sports, maybe a number he wore in basketball or something of that nature. Beyond that, one thing that I was kind of
he wore 26 and 2. Number 2 and then number 26.
He's all over the place, right? I mean, he's going back to an even number, Joe.
For sure.
Yeah, I was thinking about it and I thought, well, you know, what benefit could it possibly have? And this is an outlier, but potentially as an offensive line, when you get up to the line of scrimmage, especially on 3rd and long, and there's personnel changes, you're always trying to identify who is a DB and who's a front 5, front 6, front 7 player. And a lot of times, you know, you're out there, they're sweating your eyes, and you're just picking up numbers randomly. There's a chance it could cause some confusion depending on how the Bills' philosophy for that week works, how their substitutions go, and the type of packages that they bring, right?
Right.
It might be a fraction, but in this game, a fraction of an inch matters. So if you can get one guy to make one mistake by calling out the wrong guy in a protection or even a run scheme, you leave a guy unblocked, you leave a trick unmanned, and you can end up with a game-breaking play. You just never know.
Yeah, very good. Where were you at on the whole thought behind numbers? So for me, I'd love to know. So I played baseball. I played a little bit of football in high school, early 9th and 10th grade. I played baseball. I played volleyball. I played softball, and numbers were big for me. So like 15, I don't remember why, but early on in my youth sports, I wore 15. And I remember my varsity year baseball, my senior year, I ended up with 9. And I felt jinxed the whole season long. I was like, how can I possibly play this sport wearing the number 9? And then when I transitioned, when I got older, I think when I was 20 years old, I changed my number to 20 and was kind of, and wore that for a long time too. Does numbers play into your head factor? Is it part of your head game, or is it like, who gives a crap? Just give me a number and put me on the field.
Well, before I say that, I got to say hello to Joe Fina, Jim Fina, Mike Fina.
The whole Fina clan is in the
and the Silvestri clan, Maria representing. Thanks, guys, for showing up. Love you.
Thanks for boosting our numbers. Make sure you subscribe. Thread. Make sure you subscribe.
Hey, here, this is the worst story ever. I ended up with the 70 jersey. I come back from spring break in college. I was number 98. I was a defensive end. And I can't find my locker because my stuff is not in 98. And I go walking around the locker room and I see my stuff in the locker. And I look up and it says 70. And I go down to the equipment room and I'm like, you guys put my stuff in the wrong locker. And they said, oh, you're an offensive lineman now. And I'm like, no memo, no phone call. That's literally how I found out I flipped sides of the ball. And then I was 70. And then the Bills draft me. 70 was open, so I remained 70.
Well, what were they going to do back then, John? Beep you? I mean, that's how long ago that was.
You think like they'd have a GA hanging out, right? Hey, when Fina gets here, drag him upstairs. Tell him he's going to the dark side.
That's hysterical. Jerry, what were your thoughts on numbers before we get into the Bills free agents?
They were always a big deal. I was always number 8 when I was a kid in baseball and all that because of Bob Boone, who was a catcher for the Phillies. So I was always number 8. As I got into high school, I wore 53. When I got to Tulsa, 53 was taken. I was some obscure 70 number for a year, and then I got the 55,
which is
and I've always been 55. Yes, I've always been 55 since then. Nobody else wore 55 at Tulsa. But when I got to Buffalo, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be 55. And then I realized some guy named Cornelius Bennett was 55. And A, I don't think he was changing. And B, I don't think I had the funds to convince him to change.
Yeah.
So I did the next best thing.
You could have got it on layaway.
They said, you're number 60. I went, yes, I'm number 60. And a nice round number for a nice round person. So
it had an O in it.
Well, yes, and it had an O in it.
Yes,
it did. Very good, Joe. It
So
fit very well.
when Biscuit moved to 97, do you guys know why that happened? Why did he move from 55 to 97? Obviously a player left the team that was wearing 97.
It wasn't 50. It wasn't Biscuit. It was Mark Maddox, I think. Was that who was 55?
Yeah, Mark Maddox.
James Patton was 53. Mark Maddox was 55. Biscuit wore 97. That's right.
So Biscuit had already changed from 55 to 97.
Probably the same reason that the rest of us changed. He probably showed up to wherever he was and was like, yeah, I'm probably not getting that.
Yeah, I don't know who was 97 when he first came to the team, but yeah, he was 55 for a while. So
and not nearly as romantic as you thought it might be, Joe.
Right.
Well, numbers were just go ahead.
At that point in my career, Joe, I didn't give a rat's ass if I was wearing like minus 3.62. It did not matter. As long as I had a jersey with a number on it, I was excited.
A jersey or a number on the front and the back, and on the nameplate it says "not cut."
It wasn't cut. I always said if I ever write a book, it's going to be called "When They Spell Your Name Wrong on Your Jersey, You Know You're in Trouble." Because I went to Kansas City, I was drafted by them. We get into River Falls, Wisconsin, because we're in the cheese league, and they're like, "Okay, we're driving the buses over here. We're going to get on fire trucks and stuff and go through town on this parade." And they're handing jerseys out, and I get my jersey, and it's got a W in my last name, but I don't have a W in it. I was like,
Strowski.
Yeah, that's not good.
Jerry Ostrowski, not Ostrowski, Ostrowski. So
yes,
interestingly enough, very good. So let's move this show along. I'm going to start talking about or going through just the list of stuff, and this is all coming from the Buffalo Rumblings website. As far as it was the most up to date, or I should say, accurate list of all of the possible scenarios for Bills, both free agents and the free agents that they've brought in, guys they've signed and haven't signed. As I go through stuff, if there's anybody that you want to just point out or stop talking or stop me and start talking about, please feel free. The Buffalo Bills 2025 NFL free agency tracker, again, from the Buffalo Rumblings website. Wide receiver Josh Palmer, as we know, inked a 3-year contract. This contract, if I can pull up the numbers, 3-year, $36 million contract with $18 million guaranteed. This contract was a bit surprising to me just in the size of it, and I know that wide receivers get paid well. I think what's interesting about this is in Brandon Beane's comments from his presser 2 days ago, they asked him about, they effectively inferred, Josh Palmer versus Mac Hollins, and Beane was like, we wanted Mac Hollins back. You're going to have to talk to Mac. And I was like, oh, so Mac may not have wanted to be back.
Right.
So just, and I don't know if you guys had any overarching thoughts about that or if I should just keep going.
No, I think it's fine. I mean, I'm real quick about it. I think we talked about it last week or last Wednesday. I mean, Mac made quite a bit of money when he went to New England on this free agency contract. If the Bills did anything, they showed that he had value and actually extended his career and gave him more money. Team number 6 now for Mac Hollins. So, I'm sure the Bills did want him back, but they didn't want him back for the money that he was going to get from New England.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Hoyt, former Ram, 3-year contract, signs with the Buffalo Bills. As we know, he's got a 6-week performance-enhancing drug suspension. This is the one that Brandon Beane knew about kind of coming into it. And what was his numbers? Hoyt's deal is a maximum value of $24 million. That's all the information that I have about that.
I think go ahead, Joe.
I think it's great that we have Bosa, considering what happened with Hoyt, right? I mean, this is a guy that plays all over the field in the front 7.
Yeah.
So, thank God we have Bosa. We signed this guy. I think it at least gives us a little flexibility in both scheme and personnel. It doesn't feel good, but you got to like the person. You got to like, the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guy comes out, undrafted free agent, goes to a tiny little school. And, I think it makes a guy hungrier. We are where we are. Jerry, I don't love this, the way they do it. Okay, the Bills knew about this one. They didn't know about Joby beforehand, but the timing of the whole thing, all that stuff should be known quantity a month ago. And to me, that's just like, who's running this clown car?
Well, first of all, I think that the Hoyt situation actually gave the Bills, they got him at a discounted price. I would imagine there's something in the contract. They got him for, I think it was 3 years, 21 million. And then of course the escalators of 24, like Joe talked about. But I think that gave the Bills probably a chance to get a discount. And if you looked at some of these signings they made, especially Joey Bosa, like Brandon Beane said, if he didn't have the situation he had over the last couple of years, he's a lot more money and probably not in Buffalo.
Right. It could be a super value on that guy.
Right. So I think Hoyt's fine. And Hoyt, the thing that I appreciate about Hoyt was in his press conference, he was stand up about it. He said, I had a trainer I trusted. And he started going through all the stuff. And, usually with PEDs, you get the story of tainted supplement. He was talking about doing infusions and all that stuff. And that's where a lot of this crap is hidden that these guys don't know about. I went to a guy in Phoenix my last couple of years in the league when I was having some issues with weight stuff. And those are things, we had talked about. And I told him, look, I can't afford to do that. And I didn't do it. Some of these guys, though, these trainers, just they want the notoriety. They want their guy to do well, and they'll do whatever they have to do. I kind of believe Hoyt and what he says, or at least I'd like to. The Obajobi situation is ridiculous to me. And John, I agree with you 100%. The fact that the league has to let teams know these guys are on the hook for these positive tests before they sign them.
Right.
Bean makes the comment, well, we didn't know about it until 1 or 2 days afst we sied him.
He said the league didn't know.
The league didn't know. Right. That's what I was getting to, because his test was in limbo.
Right.
You make $7 billion a year. Have your own damn testing facility. What do you mean you got to wait?
Right.
I mean,
right.
You know how long ago football took place?
Well,
and we're just now finding out about a positive test. I mean, that's ridiculous.
There should be a drop dead date when the test is taken, and a drop dead date when the test is delivered. And if you can't meet that date of delivery, then the player's off the hook. It's a non-test or indeterminate.
We're also talking about a league that still has not punished the wide receiver from Kansas City. So for the hit and run, which I guess now
you have that, and then you have Worthy's situation where he strangles the girl. Then they say there's not enough evidence to convict, but yet the girl's protective order goes through.
Right. Yeah. So moving on from that, as far as that goes, running back Darrington Evans makes his third stint with the Buffalo Bills, at least for preseason, on a 1-year deal. Again, Joey Bosa, we just talked about, signs with the Buffalo Bills for a 1-year, $12.6 million contract, which I believe is all $12 million of it's guaranteed. 15.6 with upside and accelerators, which, please God, let him hit all of them. Right, is kind of where we're all at. We just talked about defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi, 1-year contract. I think it was $8 million. Was that the number that Larry signed for? $8.3 million, 8 of it guaranteed. Even at $8 million, losing 6 games, he's probably still worth it. I believe that one of the things that I remember Brandon Beane saying in his presser, had he been a guy that had this problem in his past, they would have moved on. But this is not a problem that he has ever had before. So it was just kind of like, we'll just take it on the chin.
And going back to Bosa, I want to bring something up that Walter brings up. Take away the name, and there's no way you're picking Bosa over far more consistent players at similar or less than Za'Darius, Reddick, Judon, Fowler. Yes, I am. And it has nothing to do with the last name. None of those guys have done the things that Bosa has done in this league. Has he had a couple of years where he's had injury situations? Yes, he still did play 14 games last year. Yeah. The other thing about that signing is, if you watched his press conference, there is one thing in Buffalo that's really, really, really important, and that is fit. Mm-hmm. You got to have guys that fit the franchise, fit the locker room. Bosa fits that locker room really, really well. And I pray that he stays healthy. I pray that he can play all games and do the things he's done in the past. And at $12.6 million, I'm willing to take that chance. But
I totally agree with you, Jerry. And I'll add this: if you watch his sacks from last year, if you just watch the activity, the guys, there isn't a higher motor guy on the field. And when he gets to the quarterback, he's a ball hawk. He's knocking it out. He creates fumbles. He gets the ball on the ground. And that's the kind of thing we need. A guy that's not just going to make the sack. He's going to make the strip sack. He's going to knock the ball out from a running back when he's, trapped in the backfield at 3-yard TFL. I also feel like there's a sense from Bosa that if I stay healthy, I'm a deliverable guy at 8 to 10 sacks this season. And I just, that energy, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah. And Ryan brings something up, and Ryan's usually on point. And we're talking about these PED players, less than 8 million. We are not on the hook for the suspended games. Is this another situation where the Bills, I'm serious now, don't think they wouldn't do this. Is this another situation where they're able to bring talent on this team with multi-year deals or even a single-year deal, aiming for the playoffs or whatever, and they've got with cap freedom because now these guys, because of being suspended for PEDs, don't get the pay that they would have got paid normally? I mean, if you're into conspiracy theories, folks, this is something to think about.
He definitely works it, and he talked about it to your point as far as that goes. That, like, and you said it a second ago, like, if he's playing 17 games a season and he's got 10 to 15 sacks a year, we're not getting him for 12.6. It's just not happening.
But so I was talking about the PED guys.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. I was talking about the PED guys.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say this, and I know we're beating this to death and real fast. If you want to be pissed at anybody, be upset with the NFL.
Yeah,
because I think this is ridiculous that these guys, you're just finding out 2 days after free agency starts that the guys got a positive. It's stupid.
Yeah. The Bills also signed safety Derek Forrest Jr. to a 1-year contract. There is no information as far as what the dollar amount is on that. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but just from this article that I'm reading from Buffalo Rumblings, it is not there. Clearly, backup situation scenario. I would expect the Buffalo Bills are going to be rolling out Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop this year as far as that goes. So Derek Forrest, who has, I think he played 17 games or 14 games last season. He can play. Wide receiver, kick returner Laviska Shenault signed to a 1-year contract. Brandon Beane said, I think he said kick returner first, right? Kick returner, wide receiver, one of those guys. The Buffalo Bills are bringing back Dane Jackson to a 1-year contract. Dane Jackson and Tre'Davious White, as much as I like Christian Benford, sounds different to me than Dane Jackson and Christian Benford. Would you agree or disagree with that? Keeping in mind that when Dane was here with Tre'Davious, he was a lockdown corner.
Say that again. Make that comment again.
I'm not sure what point you were making, Joe.
So there's an aspect there's an aspect out there right now that the Bills are not done at corner, but there's an expectation that Dane might be the starter opposite Christian Benford. I probably should have started there.
Okay.
To which I said Dane Jackson on the other side of Tre'Davious White sounds totally different to me than Dane Jackson on the other side of Christian Benford. Basically, what I'm saying is Tre'Davious White, when he was at his uninjured prime status here in Buffalo, was a shutdown corner in the NFL. And I know the Christian Benford's numbers are great in a zone scheme that the Bills run. Dane and Christian Benford makes me a little more nervous. And clearly he could be fine than Dane and Tre'Davious White. When Dane and Tre'Davious White were together, Dane did fine. It was more than fine.
I totally get your point. And I still feel we have to do something at corner, whether it's in free agency or the draft, right? God forbid it's the draft. I just don't see where there's a play in free agency right now. But to me, this folds into the Cook situation. You hold off on James Cook until you have to do something as far as an extension goes, because you don't want to use up that money. Any money you got, any nickels you can rub together. So I think Beane is playing the Cook situation perfectly, given that he wants to have these holes filled before the draft. And then if there's an opportunity to do something, we could still let James Cook play out his contract.
Well, we're gonna find out a whole lot of stuff depending on if the Bills draft, when and where, if they draft a running back. I mean, as much as you parlayed the Dane Jackson conversation into James Cook,
right?
It'll be telling if the Bills, like, round 2 take a running back. It's gonna be like, oh,
my answer was we need more help at corner.
Yeah,
and that says why slow playing Rasul is not a bad play either, right?
Correct. Yeah. Jerry, were you gonna say something?
I think that we have not seen the last of what the Bills are going to do in free agency. I still think that first and second round pick are in play. If they go out to try to make a trade for a corner, I think the Bills were very, very opportunistic and got lucky in some cases with some of the way they were able to rebuild the defensive line so quickly. Yes, I know 2 of those guys is going to be a bit, but Bosa being the centerpiece of that. So I think that you still have that first and second round pick in play. They have stockpiled late round picks. If they do move them, they still have a number of picks in the draft this year.
Yep.
But they have to find somebody else at corner, whether it be, I would like an established veteran. I don't know if you can find that day one starter that goes out there and can do the things that some of these guys can do at 30th. I don't know. You might be able to. I think the big, thick D tackles are so deep this year, you might find one of those at that spot more than a corner. It's to be seen, but I think as this thing plays out, I think that we're going to see some stuff happen at that cornerback position before the draft.
Yeah. So go ahead.
With 10 picks in the draft, Jerry, what do you think about this? You trade both 2s for a 1, and you got 2 first-round picks, and you go D tackle and corner.
I mean, I could see that in a great scenario. I don't know if anybody would do that. I wish they would, especially if that second first-round pick is in the middle of the first round.
Right? Yeah, because you need to see about getting Johnson or Amos.
But the other problem you guys have to remember is this. You've got to manage then 2 first-round salaries on your salary cap.
Yeah.
So, you have to be careful with what you do because of the tight money situation in Buffalo.
And that was my hiccup on that. Go ahead, Joe.
They've done it before. They did it with obviously Tremaine Edmonds and Josh Allen. My biggest concern over that is going to be the Bills just don't do a great job of getting their sights on a player and going after him. Like if you're going to do that, if you make that move because there's a guy there that's falling that is a top 10 player on your board,
right?
Great. Right. But there's an aspect of like, we really need a defensive tackle. Let's make a move and trade our 2 2s and go get that dude. The Bills I feel like the draft board for the Bills 3 through 6, 3 through 7. I think they do a very good job of taking the best player that's there. They just take the best player that's there. Who's left on the board? Who do we have graded out the best? It's that guy by a lot. We'll just take that guy. And 1 and 2, it just feels like they force, like, we like this guy. And if the guy they like is gone, then they trade out, right?
Which is the way the draft has gone in the last 5 to 10 years because of the extreme cap situations. You have to try to hit home runs early. My question to you, Joe, as we're talking about cornerbacks, is this. And I'm not saying you don't like him because I know that you like him, but you seem to be – you continually make comments about Benford and zone and that kind of thing. Where Benford does, our cornerbacks in our defensive system, yes, they do play a lot of zone. The number one thing our corners do is they've got to come up and play contain in the run. And Benford does that as good as anybody in the league besides 100%. Play his coverage stuff. And if you look at his numbers and his analytics throughout the season, and you know me, I'm not a hang everything on analytics guy.
Yeah.
Extremely effective and one of the top corners in the league this past season. Just kind of curious your thoughts on that and why you seem to be maybe not quite sure of Christian Benford.
It's a great question, and I like the fact that you brought it to me. So Rasul Douglas, another one of those guys that comes up and tackles really, really well, right? And it'll be interesting to kind of see. I didn't even think about slow playing Rasul, which one of you just mentioned a little bit ago.
But the thing to me is you got Rasul who now it's kind of like the game and The Price is Right, the little alpine climber. Rasul's going over the edge, man. Yeah, I mean, he's on the way extreme. I think he's plummeted quite a bit. This offseason where Benford still's got a ton of good football left. And if you don't re-sign him, you watch what he'll make somewhere else. I mean, he will get good money.
That's the reason that I am not an anti-Christian Benford guy at all. I would love to see Christian Benford. I remember doing this podcast years ago when Tre'Davious White was up for his extension and having Greg Thompson from Cover One on the show, who was kind of like the Bills Mafia, capologist guy that everybody goes to when they want to talk. And his comment back then was like, don't worry, Tre'Davious White is going to get all the Pagula bucks. And Tre'Davious White did get all the Pagula bucks. And I feel like the Buffalo Bills learned possibly a lesson from that. 2 lessons. Number one, a reassurance and a reaffirmation that like they can plug guys into this Sean McDermott secondary position and guys will excel if they have the right, if they've got a lot of the right skill set and things that they need. And number two, I feel like there's an aspect of like they threw a truckload of money at Tre'Davious White, and Tre'Davious White didn't outlive his contract. Like he ended up getting injured. They ended up having to cut him or release him before his contract was up. So all that to say this, this isn't a Christian Benford thing as much as I feel like I'm not going to be surprised if they don't re-sign Christian Benford because they feel like they can draft a guy this year, 1 or 2, that can basically be his replacement next year. And they don't have to pay Christian Benford $120 million for 4 years.
Well, if that happens, then we're absolutely hosed.
Yeah, I agree. We
have said that before.
And I don't agree with your comment about, and I'm not mad at it. I just don't agree with your comment. You're like, oh, just grab. Why are we worried about cornerbacks then? Just go get anyone that can somewhat play zone and plug and play. And because McDermott's scheme or whatever, I don't agree with that.
I think
what pick in the draft was White? Was Trey White?
27.
Okay, it was 27. Okay. But I don't. If it was cornerback friendly and plug and play, we'd already have Kaiir Elam starting on the other side, and we wouldn't have to worry about going to find another one.
But Brandon Beane talked about Kaiir Elam, and he basically said that he inferred heavily that was more of a what's going on in Kaiir Elam's head more than it is anything else. Like he's got all the skill set, all the ability, all the talent. Like if I had to guess, as much as Beane said, I talked to other teams and said, you're getting a really great guy and a really great player. If I had to guess, the part of that conversation that he had with whatever teams he was shoving him to was like, Kaiir needs a change of scenery. That's what Kaiir needs.
Okay. So you just reinforced what I'm going to say and what Jerry said earlier is the guy's a fit right now. Okay. So, knock on wood, there's nothing swimming around in Benford's head. And in my opinion, the two positions on defense, you don't want to lose guys, defensive end and corner, right? You re-sign the guy. He's in a groove, whatever you want to call it. You're on the golf course. You're hitting it pure, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. If he's there, you keep the guy.
I agree 100%.
And the other
you're going to pay him. That's the problem. You're going to pay him.
I don't think I want them to. I don't think they're going to.
And the other thing is this, the comment about Elam and the mind wasn't locked in or the mind wouldn't whatever. John
not locked in. He had a confidence issue.
Well, right. And let me get to this point.
Yeah.
And John would probably say this. I probably watched, I don't know, 20, 25 guys walk through that locker room door over a 10-year career or whatever that probably had more ability than me and other guys in that locker room. And after about 3 months, they turned around and walked right back out. Mm-hmm. And so you make the comment like, oh, well, he had all the ability. Just the mind's probably the most important thing out of this whole situation. You got to be able to think. It's why the great ones, even though their bodies are beat up and they're 70% athletic at where they used to be, the mind and everything allows them to still play at a high level. And I don't agree with this. You can just bring guys in, whoever it is, because if that's the case, then Dane Jackson's here. We'll just play him at corner and we'll just go into the season and be fine. And it's not
that may happen.
It's not the way it is.
That may absolutely.
You don't just plug them in a corner and they're good, and because they're in McDermott's system. I don't believe that.
I'm just telling you that may happen, and I can speak to myself, and Little League, right? So baseball. I don't remember what division I was in, but there was a time where I was in the division where I was the oldest kid in the division, and I was the freaking man on my Little League baseball team. And then I moved up a division, and I couldn't catch a fly ball. Like I literally stood in the outfield and couldn't catch a fly ball. And this is a core memory that lives with me to this day about being embarrassed and being like, what happened? How come all of a sudden I can't play baseball anymore? And it's because I moved up. I lost all my confidence. I know I got it back. Like, and I ended up playing, like I said, baseball in high school and stuff like that. But there's a great deal of like
that's your mom and dad's fault, Joe. You know why?
Is your concern?
They're the one that each gave you half of your genetic ability. So if you want to blame somebody and you go to therapy and you just can't handle it, just blame it on your parents because they're the ones that gave you.
So Joe, is your argument that they're not going to sign Benford and look for somebody else? Like they're. I
have no argument. I am.
No. But is that your position?
I'm not going to be surprised. I will not be surprised if they do not resign Christian Benford.
Okay. I think Jerry.
I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not going to be shocked.
I think Jerry and I will take that bet. But hey, James comes up with a super chat. Thanks, James. Greater than great show, fellas. You guys are the best. I'm ad-libbing. Who are your current top paid players from 1 to 5 other than Josh? If you know, thanks. Oh, Mindbender.
So I'm on Spot Track.
Dawkins.
I've already looked it up. So I'm going to give you Josh Allen, who is number one with a $41 million cap hit, $41.3 million. And there's rumors out there right now that his new deal does not give them any cap relief this year, which, believe it or not, is probably a smart thing. Deion Dawkins at number 2 for $19.9 million. Matt Milano at number 3 for $15.8 million. Number 4, Dawson Knox, $14.5 million. Number 5, Ed Oliver, $10.6 million. And then number 6, Daquan Jones for $9.4 million.
Those are great numbers.
And I'll throw that out there as well. The Buffalo Bills' current cap situation, their cap space is currently sitting at $9.6 million. And it says, as per Spot Track, or overthecap.com rather, effective cap space, I don't know what that means versus cap space, but their effective cap space is $6.5 million.
Thanks, James. Appreciate you, man. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, James.
And the last free agent signing was Kendrick Green, offensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills on a 1-year deal. We're a little bit late. How about if I just run through the rest of these moves real quick so you guys have them and you can, so I'll like rapid fire them at you. And if you want to stop me. Does that work?
Go.
That's fine.
So Buffalo Bills free agents re-signed so far. Alec Anderson, 1-year deal. Shane Buechele, 1-year deal. Zach Davidson, 2-year contract. Ryan Vandemark, 1-year contract. Reed Ferguson, I think, was a 3-year deal. The interesting thing about Reed is he going to be another like roster cut, hang out in the parking lot, and we're going to bring you back and re-sign you, which is what happens to Reed Ferguson every single stinking year. Ty Johnson, 2-year contract. Reggie Gilliam, 1-year contract. The Bills are in the 1-year contract business. That's what they do. Damar Hamlin, 1-year contract. Other Buffalo Bills players' contracts roster moves. Khalil Shakir, who we know about, 4-year extension. Terrell Bernard, 4-year extension. Greg Rousseau, 4-year extension. Josh Allen, 6-year extension. Signed through 2030. Ed Oliver, contract restructure. Bills rumored reported interest. I'm not going to go through any of those guys because they're all gone. Other news moves involving Bills players, including former Jordan Phillips, currently not on a roster. He has come out and said, the only team I'm willing to play for is Buffalo. And I think, John, you wanted to talk about Jordan real quick.
Well, I'd love to have him back, right? You know, he's going to have to get a different number, which is fine. You know, he can wear 60. He can't wear 70 because Alec Anderson has it. He can wear number 8.5 for all I care. I'd like to bring him back. I think he's just a great guy to have in the locker room. And depending on what happens in the draft, right? You don't want to lose on a big body if you don't have a replacement for a big body. And the guy wants to be here. It should be a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing to me is, you know, we've got guys last year that we drafted that we're going out signing free agents, especially these positions and stuff. We need to make sure we develop these guys. Why are we drafting them when we are if we're not developing them? Carter's one of them. Of course, we know about the Coleman situation. You know, there's just players we have on this roster that need to produce this year.
Right.
And, you know, these guys, the time is now. I mean, there's no time to wait around anymore. They got to get ready to play.
I would expect with the PED suspensions and just kind of what's going on that Jordan Phillips will be on this football team. I was terribly surprised. Dwayne Carter, before he got injured, was coming on. Am I the only one that remembers that? And then when I put a tweet out there that, hey, don't forget, Dwayne Carter looked good like before he got injured and was kind of coming on, and like I got a ton of backlash. Oh, he sucked. And he was terrible, and he was this, and he was that. And I was like, that isn't how I remember the situation at all.
He had a little bit, Joe, of what Karl Mock used to call a blind dog in a butcher house. He just kind of was all over the place. And sometimes it would pay off, and he was where he was supposed to be, and he would make a play. And sometimes he was, 30 yards over here and everybody was 30 yards over there, but that's part of being a rookie.
And to your point, Jerry, these 1-year contracts, bringing guys in while you develop the guys you drafted,
right.
It gives you opportunity. If you need to shed a guy for another, you're getting a look from a guy who's on a 1-year. You can part ways if a guy doesn't hit the development curve the way you want him to.
Yeah.
So I love the way he's playing this. It just gives you such great flexibility.
All I heard from Jerry, if I'm going to translate what he said, was you just can't draft or trust guys from Duke. That's all I heard. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
unless they're named what, Chris? Unless they're named Grant Hill, Sheldon Williams, Christian
Fina.
Leitner,
Fina.
Fina. Yeah, some guy named Fina.
Yeah,
Couple guys probably.
I'm drafting. If there's a Fina at Duke, I'm drafting him to do my portfolio.
Listen, he could do that from the locker room. Pretty sure they have Wi-Fi.
How in the world did you not jump on that comment, John? I lofted that out there for you, and you didn't even.
I think he was kind of stunned a little bit that you went
side-eyed it. You just
honestly, you know what? I have like elephant skin. You guys don't bother me. Take a shot at me. It's okay.
So do I. Now that I spent 4 days in Arizona, that's all I'm gonna say about that. Quarterback Dane Jackson was released by the Panthers, as we know, signed by the Buffalo Bills to a 1-year deal. Offensive tackle Tommy Doyle retired. Safety Micah Hyde retired. James Cook, this according to the Bills or the Buffalo Rumblings website, is publicly negotiating for a huge contract extension, which is true. Sam Martin has been released. Edge rusher Von Miller released. And then Casey Toohill has signed with the Texans. And then the last part about this, as far as it's of any interest to any of us, free agents, restricted free agents that are still out there. And I think the way that I would pose this is a sign or no. So, like, I'm going to say a name, and you guys go resign or no. And we'll just assume 1-year contract. Okay. So, first one, Amari Cooper, sign or no?
No.
Quentin Jefferson?
Yes.
No.
Jordan Phillips?
Yes.
Austin Johnson?
No.
Really? John?
Maybe.
Dwayne Smoot?
I like Smoot.
Yeah, I'm a yes on Smoot, just given what's going on with Hoyt and Joby.
Yeah. Rasul Douglas?
No.
Yes.
Wow. Von Miller, obviously gone. There's conversation. There's loose conversation about them bringing Von back.
No.
And then Will Clapp.
And Von.
And then Will Clapp.
No.
Who was the last one?
Will Clapp.
No.
Sorry, I was thinking something else.
Anyway. You forgot the other big signing that the Bills have made. Bills have signed Will Greenberg to a contract. Who is Will Greenberg? He is the now new elevated in-house head strength coach and performance development guy. So Will Greenberg was signed from in-house. He's now the new head of strength and conditioning with the Buffalo Bills.
That dude will never see the field.
We should also probably clear up.
They can plug any strength coach into the defense system, and he'll be fine.
Play, bro. It's plug and play.
He's plug and play. Just do a couple bench presses, a squat or two, some Pilates. You're good to go.
Yeah, so I'm wearing the STA shirt, but also we probably should clear up a rumor. There was a rumor out there that was on Twitter that Quentin Morris was on the Bills roster, was listed, and he is on ESPN.com listed on the Bills roster. He is not listed on the Bills roster on BuffaloBills.com, which is probably the foremost authority. Although I will say this, the Bills roster does sometimes lag, and the ESPN one is out in front. But I would say at this point in time, Quentin Morris is not a Buffalo Bill. So any final thoughts before? Great show, gentlemen. Before I get us out of here, any final thoughts?
No, just I think we're going in the right direction. And by the way, I just want to make one more public service announcement about what we talked about earlier. If you are upset and mad at these guys that have been suspended for 6 games for PED usage, turn your angst to the NFL, not them. Yes, they are responsible for what they put in their body, whether it be a tainted supplement or not. But the league has to notify teams before they sign them. Then if you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at Brandon Beane for signing them in the first place.
At the risk of delaying this episode or making elongating this episode, I'm reminded of what you said. You talked about infusion, blood infusion, but did you mean blood transfusion, like blood doping?
No, infusions are the new thing now in recovery. You go in and they mix you up. They mix you up a cocktail in a bag, a couple of shots of Tito's, some grape juice, some ginger ale, and then you hang it on your golf cart.
The infusions we were drinking on the golf course.
And you drive around the course, and you've got. So these guys come in and they do blood testing and all that, and they go, well, we've noticed that your potassium is low, or your whatever is low, or I've noticed your hair is brittle. You need to have more of that. And they give you these customized customized IVs,
Got
and
it.
that's where a lot of that crazy stuff is hidden in the
Got
IVs.
Very good. Well, good show, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune in.
My last thought is prayers out to all those affected in Oklahoma by the wildfires and disruptions, and
How about South Carolina?
Any bad weather going on in the Carolinas. Stay safe out there.
Yeah, for sure. This is we're entering the peak season for Tornado Alley, for all of Tornado Alley. It seems like the springs have been getting worse and worse.
Tornadoes? I don't know anything about them, Joe. Tornado Alley? What is that about? Can you explain that to me?
I lived in Missouri and Ohio.
Guy in Buffalo want to tell me about tornadoes.
I lived in Missouri and Ohio. I lived in Missouri for 2 years and in Ohio for 13. So I lived in Tornado Alley. But
it's like
everybody in the comments, thank you for coming. We hope you had a good time. We're having a great time. And for Jerry O and for Joe Miller,
I am not done yet. Although John wants to apparently lead the show, which I'm all for.
And by the way, could you see Joe when he was talking earlier about he was an absolute stud in his little league when he was 12 years old, and he was probably shaving before all the other kids.
I was hitting dingers. I was hitting home runs.
I bet you were. You probably also went and bought beer for all the high school kids.
And then leveled up and couldn't hit a ball. I couldn't hit a baseball, couldn't catch a baseball. It was awful. Like, I don't know what happened, but my confidence just went through the floor. But anyway. So anyways, make sure all of you tune in on Tuesday live at 8 p.m. Jenna Cottrell again is going to be joining us from Buffalo Plus and from Rochester 13 WHAM Wham. One of our favorite on the beat reporters to have on the show. So make sure you join us on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, 8 p.m. live, the Big O Show. Again, same show, same time, different night. The Big O Show with Jerry Ostrowski. Make sure you tune in. I think that's all I got. I've already given you the opportunity. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. We appreciate you guys. We love you. Thank you for joining us. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction, we love you guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Don't be stupid on St. Patrick's Day. Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.